Joe Kent, he's running for election. I had no problem with him. I actually liked, I mean, all I know from a lot of these politicians is what they tweet. And then I'm a big follower of Steve Bannon. And ironically, Nick Fuentes is not a fan of Steve Bannon. Actually, really harsh against him, which kind of makes the Getter thing make more sense to me now. He got banned off of Getter before he even got on Getter. So do you see why I'm so curious about this dude? Getter banned him before he even got on to Getter. So I'm like, is this the new Triple K like leader? Like, what is going on, man? This is crazy. Like, he's so infamous, he got banned before he got on the platform. Like, don't even create an account, bro. We already got you. He's 23. He's 23 years old. But Joe Kent's running, and I liked a lot of what he said. He's got the endorsement of Bannon. I like Bannon, a lot of Bannon's ideas and philosophies. And so I know a little bit about Joe Kent. Never was against him. Well, I would say that I was for Joe Kent. I would say that. I knew enough to say I don't know about endorsement, but I like what he said. So he's in this race in Washington, and the incumbent is, what's her name? Herrera or something like that? I forgot. The incumbent in this district in Washington is, she voted for impeachment of Trump, so it was a very big deal here where a lot of people wanted her gone, which I agree as well. Anyone who voted for the impeachment of Trump, for me, should be voted out of office. But I also said literally everyone should be voted out of office in D.C. in general anyway, just for a lot of what's gone on. So Jamie Herrera, I don't know, is it Butler? Is that how you pronounce her last name? But yeah, Jamie Herrera voted for impeachment, and they're all running against her in this. The primary's coming up in August in the 3rd district in Washington, and Heidi St. John is the 3rd or 4th place as of right now. I look at the money, and she's the 3rd largest money raiser there. So she's like in 3rd place as far as money goes for this race. And she called on Joe Kent to repudiate Nick Fuentes' endorsement. Republican congressional candidate Heidi St. John today called on opponent Joe Kent to repudiate the endorsement of a pro-Putin activist and a guy with the funny mustache enthusiast. So when I first see that, it's again about power and control. Joe Kent never, to my knowledge, never endorsed the ideas of Nick Fuentes. So I'm just thinking of it from my standpoint. Like, if I've never endorsed Nick Fuentes, and you're asking me to repudiate him. Wait, what? I never put him on a throne. You're asking me to, what does that even mean? You're asking me to dethrone somebody? I never even put him on a throne. I never talked. Well, he has mentioned him here in the past, and I'm going to get into that. But it's not like Joe Kent was like, this guy is so great and everything he says is excellent. Like, I'm an Andrew Yang fan. I will prop him up when he's good. I will disagree when he's not. I'm an ideas guy. So even somebody like Nicole Hannah-Jones, for example, and if somebody were to say to me, hey, why don't you repudiate Nicole Hannah-Jones? I'd be like, what does that mean? What idea of hers are you talking about? I don't agree with my wife on everything, my kids, my family. What is the purpose of this? Me denouncing somebody in general, especially somebody I never propped up. Obviously, it's a power move, a move to get some trending, a move to try and put Joe Kent in a corner. And for me, like, you're not going to put me in a corner. I'm tired of people telling me what I should be doing, telling me that I need to do this, telling me I need to support this, telling me I need to denounce this. Man, don't tell me what the hell I need to denounce or promote or whatever. I'm good. If you have a specific idea, let's do a broadcast together. Let's sit down and do an interview. If you want to list out all the specific ideas of somebody, maybe let's do that. I'm not repudiating anybody. I never supported him. So the response is interesting. So Heidi St. John, she did it obviously paid off because Joe Kent replied. And then he replied to her. He said, "My opponents are again spreading lies about me. I strongly condemn Nick Fuentes' politics, especially in regards to our ally Israel." I don't know, maybe there was something in the past between him and Heidi St. John. I don't know how Israel even came up. We're talking about a 23-year-old random dude. Most 23-year-olds have their face planted in an Xbox. How did Israel as an ally from a supposed America First candidate, how did that even come into play? I mean, it would be like bringing in just a random topic. That was, I don't know. Maybe there's a history there. Then he said, "I ignored his invitation to speak at his recent conference in Orlando." This is beta energy, bruh. Like, this is not, at least he's trying to explain. Like, Herschel Walker and others don't even try. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she did okay when she tried to explain it. I'll get into that later. But he said, "I ignored his invitation." What do you mean you ignored it? Stand up and say you didn't want to do it? Or like, what do you mean I ignored his invitation? "I ignored his invitation to speak at his recent conference in Orlando, and I'm not aware of, nor do I accept any endorsement from him." You're not aware? That doesn't even, I don't even know what's going on, because Marjorie Taylor Greene said that. "I'm not aware of his ideas." Man, that doesn't really, it's not believable, doesn't fly with me. I said I didn't know much about him. I'm not running for Congress. I didn't speak at his event. His name hasn't come out of my mouth. So now I am more aware. There's this website called Cozy, COZY.TV, that he goes live on, and the whole event is on there. I'm going to play a couple clips from it, this AFPAC event. So I'm educating myself on him. But the one thing that doesn't change is the First Amendment. So let's go back to what Joe Kent said in 2000. Well, just last year. It feels like 10 years ago. This was less than a year ago. Joe Kent said, "The choice is no longer right versus left. It's liberty versus tyranny. One side wants you to control your own life. The other wants control of your life. If you question their authority, you will be removed from society." That's exactly what Heidi St. John was just trying to do to Joe Kent, is to control his life. Repudiate this one. Repudiate this. What? You don't control who I repudiate or not. I've never propped him up. So you go on, kick rocks. For someone, we need to see some stronger responses. Many are glad, this is again from last year, many are glad that their political rivals are targeted by the state and big tech. They hate Trump. Nick Fuentes, he actually at the dude when I think he was still on Twitter at this time, in MAGA. "The short side thinking has led to some of the greatest tragedies in human history. I agree completely with all of that." So when he says this, targeted by the state, big tech, they hate Trump, Nick Fuentes, MAGA, that's not an endorsement. This statement by itself is not an endorsement of anyone. He's just talking about what's happening. It's these people who try to control your lives, try to force you into, "Oh, you've endorsed somebody." What? I haven't endorsed anybody. I'm endorsing the First Amendment. The short side thinking is what's leading to our current tragedy in America. We must fight for all speech and fight the confluence of government and big tech. You know, if you watch this channel, I'm clapping like a baby seal right now, a year ago. So you can see why I had no problem with Joe Kent going back to a year ago. And then now, you see, it tells me a lot about where he really stands on these issues when you get pushed in a corner. Who knows? You need a lot of money to run. He's raised over, I forgot, I looked on Ballotpedia, and I think he's over $1 million raised. He's got money from people coming in. I don't know who. But those people might say, "Hey, we don't like this Nick Fuentes stuff." So what do you value more? And these politicians might be, I'm just saying in general, not Joe Kent, I don't know. Love to talk to him about it. These politicians might be in that position where they're like, you know what? For me to enact change, I got to get to DC. And if I've got to denounce Nick Fuentes to get this paycheck, then I've got to do it to get this paycheck. That's the impression that I get from it. So I said, I like Joe. I've liked Joe. This is a mark against him to me. And the mark against him is not really the denouncing of Nick Fuentes. It's more when this is brought up and it may threaten your money or your ability to get to DC. Do you really stand behind the First Amendment? No, he obviously didn't. It was an afterthought. I got to denounce. Somebody said, do you denounce? I got to denounce. I'm not denouncing anybody. So I said, what does Israel have to do with America first? How did they even come up? Nick Fuentes is unconstitutionally censored from the public square, while racists, open, unequivocally racist people like Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, Nicole Hannah-Jones, they get protected. So if Heidi asked me, I need you to denounce Nick Fuentes, I was like, you need to denounce yourself right now. I've never propped up Nick Fuentes. Number one, Nick Fuentes is unconstitutionally censored from the public square, while there are racists on the other side who get promoted. That is the fall of America. Let's fix that, protect our First Amendment rights, and then let's have an open discussion on the public square, all on fair grounds. Right now, you want me to denounce somebody who can't even reply on Twitter to defend themselves. Kick rocks. That's my response. Don't try to control me. So Joe, in his credit, after people pointed out this discrepancy, they said, Joe Kent said, I stand by this. No one should be deplatformed or put on a no-fly list. Reportedly, Nick Fuentes is on a no-fly list. Wow. For their political ideas. A 23-year-old for his political ideas. I don't want Fuentes' endorsement due to his focus on race, religion. The fights he's picking are counterproductive. This is not my message of inclusive populism. So there's some parts I agree here, because the identitarian stuff that I've seen from Fuentes, I'm out on. Now, for me, I'm not, anybody in the world can endorse whoever. It's not for me to denounce somebody's endorsement, but if you want to talk about his identitarianism on the white spectrum, I'm out. I don't care what the identity is. I'm not for it. The religion, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with his religious part of what he's saying. That's just me. But the reason I put this tweet up here is inclusive populism. What the hell is that? I don't understand what he means by inclusive populism. The Gab's co-founder, I think he's CEO, Andrew Torba, said inclusive populism isn't a thing. I agree with that. I mean, just in layman's terms, populism is the viewpoint that the power should be with people, the common person. There is no, what do you mean by inclusive? There's nothing else to add to that. Now, it's interesting that Nick Fuentes, and it looks like the Gab, CEO or founder, is kind of down with Fuentes. I didn't know that. I'm learning all this. But it's interesting. They call themselves, and I've heard Nick Fuentes, now that I'm listening to him more, they call themselves like Christian nationalists. And the term nationalist has been really linked to white nationalist, and that's to provide a stigma to denounce the term nationalist. Joe Biden, at his State of the Union address, he started talking about nationalist point of views when he said secure the border. That's a nationalist, and he's obviously a white male, but nobody labeled him a white nationalist for it. That's a nationalist position to secure the border. And I completely agree with it. And he also talked about independence. When you talk about energy independence, whether, we know that he's not doing it. But when you talk about that, that's also nationalism. It's nationalism versus globalism. Obviously, the globalists don't want people, especially in America with the most powerful document in the world, the Constitution, they don't want nationalists in America. They really don't want nationalists anywhere. But so the Gab CEO responded and said, get on board or get out the way. This is kind of escalating to a thing here. And I'm seeing how powerful this dude is. While I don't agree with his identitarian point of views, anybody here, what I interpret it as is I don't interpret it as pure white nationalism, identitarianism. I look at it's a 5-hour stream, but I was looking at the AFPAC event. This is the one that Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke at. And I'm going to listen to the whole thing. But I found it interesting that I didn't hear it. The only people I heard the Young Turks bring it up, but I didn't know they had a black male speak at it, Jesse Lee Peterson, who's great. Follow his YouTube channel. Michael Malice was just on there. Great discussion. But they had a black male speak at this event that was supposed to be so racist or whatever else. So I found that interesting. So I don't think it's a pure identitarian point of view. What I see so far, I'm still learning. What I see is they're looking at the other side that's identitarian. Color, all this, whatever the identity is other than religion. Obviously, the other side, when we look at the left side, for lack of a better term, these corporate leftists, Black Lives Matter, all that kind of stuff, they never talk about religion. They're anti-religion. That's because their beliefs are the religion. That's because they want government to be God. You can't be a God-fearing man and believe in this identity first side. And then they look at the maps, and you look at people of color, women, men, white people, white women, and you look at the color of the U.S., at the general election level, and you look at it and you say, well, this is what it would be if these different identity groups voted. And I think these a lot of them are young men, and you heard him make this young white man comment. I think a lot of them are like, I don't care about, a lot of them are like, I don't care about this identity at all. And you're going to hear Marjorie Taylor Greene even brought that up at the speech. So they're going after her for speaking at this event. But when she actually spoke at the event, I'm going to play a clip, she actually talked about being colorblind. And this is an event, if you say something silly, they're going to boo you the hell off the stage. This isn't like the State of the Union address where you'll clap no matter what Biden says.